Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us here today. We're here today to share the results of a joint forces operation into violent and criminal acts linked to the tow truck industry. I'm joined today by various officers representing our partners in this investigation. Acting Superintendent Dave Mason of the Serious and Organized Crime Unit at Durham Regional Police Service, Inspector Marco Napoleoni of the Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau of the York Regional Police Service, and Chief Superintendent Mike Stoddard from the Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau at the Ontario Provincial Police. Since early 2023, Toronto and the Greater Toronto Area have experienced a sharp escalation in crimes linked to individuals and groups vying for control of the towing industry. This includes homicides, shootings, arsons, intimidation, and extortion. In 2024, 63 firearm discharge and shooting incidents were linked to tow truck-related disputes, accounting for almost 13% of all shootings and firearm discharges here in Toronto. In 2025, these incidents have continued to occur, currently accounting for approximately 15% of the total. As you know, 2 weeks ago, we announced that 10 people had been arrested and 203 charges had been laid in relation to separate incidents, including a mass shooting at a Scarborough pub. Over the past 2 years, various initiatives, task forces, and investigations have led to dozens of arrests, hundreds of charges, and many crime guns seized, all tow truck industry related. Today, we are announcing that the Toronto Police, in partnership with the Durham Regional Police Service, York Regional Police, and the OPP, have arrested 20 people and laid more than 100 criminal charges in connection with violence in the towing industry. These arrests were the result of a lengthy investigation, and Chief Superintendent Matthews will be able to give you more context in a moment. However, at this time, a court-imposed publication ban prevents us from sharing many details. What I can say is that numerous people are now facing charges related to directing and participating in the activities of a criminal organization, along with multiple conspiracies to commit murder. As a result of our investigation, acts of violence on a mass scale were deterred and prevented. We remain committed to addressing tow truck industry-related crimes with a service-wide approach, and also by working closely with our law enforcement partners, as we did in this investigation. I want to thank all of our partners, including the Ontario government and the Ministry of the Solicitor General, for their support in funding through the Criminal Intelligence Service Ontario. And of course, I also want to thank our members for their determination to bring dangerous suspects to justice and prevent further harm. A service-wide approach means that many of our teams work together, including our frontline uniform response through Project Beacon and Project Dodger, Organized Crime Enforcement Unit, Public Safety Operations, Intelligence Services, and Forensic Identification Services. We often talk about the work being done behind the scenes. Well, this is a great example of our officers working day in and day out to make a difference. Every time our members seize a crime gun, every time they arrest a dangerous suspect, every time they deter and prevent violence, our members' presence and their actions matter and make Toronto safer. I also want to thank Chair Shelley Carroll of the Toronto Police Service Board and all members of the board for their ongoing support. Their support of our service and our multi-year hiring plan helps us to be there for Torontonians when they need us the most. In short, it helps us deliver results. So far in 2025, shootings and firearm discharges are down 44% compared to the same time last year. But we can't take this for granted, and we must remain vigilant and committed in our efforts. Gun violence has devastating effects on our communities. Some of the tow truck industry-related shootings that we have seen in the past months happened in public spaces. These events underscored the importance of the law reform we have asked for in the past. Last week, I was invited to Ottawa by the Federal Minister of Public Safety to discuss law reforms, including reforms to help address shootings in congregate settings. It's important to recognize that brazen shootings in public spaces have a disproportionate impact on our communities and must be treated in a most serious way in our justice system. Gun violence has no place in our city, and we will continue to make that very clear. Thank you. I'll now pass it over to Chief Superintendent Matthews.
Thank you, Chief. As Chief Demkew said, in collaboration with our partners, we have arrested 20 people, laid 111 charges, including 52 counts of conspiracy to commit murder. We executed 14 search warrants, seized 2 firearms, and seized 4 vehicles. 3 of those vehicles were Cadillacs, like the one you can see on the screen beside me, and all 3 were armor-plated. This is all the result of the Project Yankee investigation that started in October 2024. This investigation focused on a group of individuals who referred to themselves as the Union. The group was believed to be responsible for numerous acts of violence intended to gain control over the towing industry. This violence was focused on the Scarborough area of Toronto and into both Durham and York regions. Project Yankee subsequently led to wiretap investigation targeting individuals associated with the Union and its members. For months, our teams, led by the Integrated Gun and Gang Task Force Major Project Section, gathered evidence identifying members of this Union group as a criminal organization responsible for multiple acts of violence, intimidation, and extortion. These acts of intimidation include arson. We will now play a video. What you are looking at is an arson that we allege was committed by one of the accused. You'll see that the accused throws a Molotov cocktail that is off screen. This occurred in March in Toronto, and it was a form of intimidation directed at a victim who is part of the tow truck industry. We will now play another video. In this video, you can see a suspect torching the vehicle of a rival group. This happened in Whitby in February. Project Yankee concluded on June 11, 2025, with the execution of 14 search warrants. We understand there will be many questions about this investigation, and under different circumstances, we would welcome the opportunity to provide more information. However, as the Chief has said, a court-imposed publication ban prevents us from sharing further details at this time. These restrictions are in place to protect the integrity of the investigation, safeguard the court process, and help ensure that those arrested are held accountable and receive a fair trial. As you have seen with recent announcements, including from other police services, tow truck industry-related crimes are not only a City of Toronto problem, it's a challenge that is also affecting other regions in the GTA. This is why collaboration with other law enforcement partners continues to be essential. While most operators adhere to regulations, the violence largely stems from territorial disputes and competition within a small segment of the towing industry. Obviously, our investigations focus on deterring violence and targeting those responsible, but we also know that sustainable solutions involve collaboration with regulatory agencies, policymakers, and industry stakeholders to strengthen oversight and accountability within the tow truck industry. Things like enhanced regulations, stricter compliance measures, and community support are key to addressing the root causes of this violence and creating a safer environment for everyone. Thank you, and we are now happy to take your questions.
Sean O'Shea with Global News. To the chief or the superintendent, how unusual is it to seize armor-plated vehicles, as you've done in this case?
It's extremely uncommon. We do see it in our major projects where we have the higher echelon of organized crime figures protecting themselves from their rivals. But to your direct question, it is quite uncommon. It does show the level of sophistication of this organized crime group.
Point about tow trucks. This is a tow truck industry related issue, but you didn't seize any tow trucks. Is there any significance to that?
I will tell you the investigation is ongoing. We didn't seize them at the time of our takedown, but the investigation is ongoing, and if the information provides us information about the seizure of these vehicles, we will definitely do it.
Do you think, one follow-up, do you think this particular gang group union is the most significant one in the city, perpetrating some of these allegations that they're perpetrating some of the most volume of crimes, or is this just one of many?
What I can say about that is it played a significant part in the violence in the city of Toronto, and it was because of that why they were targeted for this investigation.
Can you speak out, Chief Superintendent or Chief, about how at all this is related to the Piper Arms situation? Obviously, there was a link 2 weeks ago when we talked about some of the individuals in that investigation connected to the tow truck industry. Are these two investigations linked?
As we have mentioned earlier, that we can't speak to the specific details because of the publication ban, so I can't go much further into that area.
The court records indicate that some of these charges that you've announced today are linked to plots to be carried out, shootings at two other establishments in Durham region and one in Scarborough. Can you speak to that and I guess the brazenness that Toronto Police helped prevent?
What I can say about that is that there is a publication ban. I can't get into the details, but extreme acts of violence were prevented by this incredible investigation and the investigators making on-the-fly decisions to keep the community safe.
Obviously, the violence across the tow truck industry has been wreaking havoc on the city for years now. Is this just a drop in the bucket, or how confident are you that these arrests and charges will actually curb the violence here in the city related to the tow truck industry?
We're extremely confident that these arrests and the arrests of our partners across the province and the GTA will have an impact on the violence in our city. Well, we're removing the people that are coordinating these acts of violence, and we're taking them off the streets. We're hoping to keep them in jail until their trial, and the courts will deal with them the way they need to deal with them. But our first phase is to remove them off the street and keep the public safe.
I think, whenever we get asked questions around this kind of thing, the one thing I do and the leadership does is look at what the evidence shows us and the data shows us regarding shootings. And you've heard me speak about this before. I do it with some trepidation, recognizing that one shooting's too many and that every shooting has a massive impact, not just on those directly impacted by the violence, but by those in the communities impacted. And frankly, when I think of our members responding, they respond into harm's way time and time again. So I'm very cautious when I talk about the data, but the data is showing that we have seen a reduction in gun violence. And the numbers are going downwards in a direction that we're very closely monitoring. But I believe, when you look at the numbers, it is showing that these investigations and our members' presence in our communities are making a difference.
Chief, can you say how many of the 28 are out on bail at this point?
None.
Chief, previously, 2 weeks ago, the Piper Arms press with the superintendent at the time talked about the fact that those charged in that investigation were guns for hire. Are these the people that were doing the hiring? And can you, I guess, offer a distinction as to how this is a criminal organization versus previously where it was just a bunch of guys committing crimes?
So the information that we have from our investigation that I can speak on is that we are at the upper echelon. We are with the group that was organizing and hiring the acts of violence. And it's quite telling that none of them have criminal records or are before the courts because they are the higher level. This is why we have a specialized unit with the Toronto Police Service in our major project section that go after this very group. And the way that we go after them is through wiretap investigations, where we get the conversations about the planning and the organizing of these violent acts.
How long do you think the union's been acting here in the city? How long have they been around?
I don't have the details about when the group formed, but many of them are tow truck operators that have operated in the city of Toronto for a great deal of time.
Okay, one more question.
Why was it called Yankee, Project Yankee?
I think it's because the group called themselves the Union, and going back to the U.S. Civil War, I think, is kind of what it was.
Question Constable Kelvin Howe today. His case before the courts concluded, sentenced to 12 months probation, 3 years firearm prohibition related to a Kijiji deal gone wrong. Can you talk about how this is going to affect this constable's job within the Toronto Police Service?
Well, to be fair to the entire process, I'm yet to be briefed on the specifics of the court finding. But when I am, we'll take into considerations what we have as options under the new Community Safety Policing Act and what options I have available to me as chief, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today.